Hey, thanks for stopping by and checking us out. We are the Discount Bin. My name is Lexi.
And I'm Daniel.
I'm Leonard.
And I'm Rick.
And we're going to be discussing a book that we are reading through together called The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Some of us finished reading it today. Some of us read it a couple days ago. We read the first 8 chapters, including the prologue. What do you guys think of it so far?
I'm enjoying it. I think we'll get specifically to some chapters that I really enjoyed later, but I think there's really good world building, and there's a lot of kind of tropes and comparisons to more modern issues, I think, in it. But yeah, so far so good.
I kind of feel like it's being a little bit edgy with some of the language, like choices in there. It takes away, like, this definitely doesn't feel like, it feels like high fantasy set into like a post-apocalyptic Earth. But as if that time frame was right now, like in the 2000 somethings. And I feel like that adds to like a little bit like too much connection in one aspect, but there's enough random shit going on to where it's a lot to try to take in the first quarter of a book, or the first third, or however much we just read of the book.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that thought, like I was really surprised to like hear them use like fuck. Like that totally like broke the world for me for a moment, because I was just like, wait a second.
They dropped an F-bomb.
Yeah, they dropped an F-bomb.
I don't remember them saying that at all.
Several times.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
I didn't feel too affected by that.
Maybe it's because
it was
audio
very surprising. It was actually very surprising for me. Like I totally expected a more realistic one. I wasn't expecting like superpowers kind of world building. You know, I was maybe I just had a wrong starting impression of the book. I thought it was going to be like just people trying to survive in a world where conditions are just really rough, you know, an alternate version of Earth that is just really hard to live in, and just the struggles and how creative people are living in it. But there's so many ideas or presentations in there that feel really out of this world. It's almost like you cannot really relate to your own world anymore with how it was set up. That's my first impression.
Well, you're wrong.
Tell me I'm wrong.
You felt that you couldn't relate this world to our world?
Not in a, you see, I think usually writing, you want to be able to relate some things, right? But there are so many choice of words in there, or just description that felt so far off, and it almost as if the writer had this expectation that we will understand what the word means. Like I think even from like first chapter, the word stone lore was used. I'm like, what the fuck is stone lore? Can you at least explain what that is? And it just left this mystery word in my head. And as I read through and I read more words like that, I'm like, what is this? What is that? And it feels very disjointed. As I read through the story, I just had words that I'm like, what does this mean? That's just hanging over my head as I read through it. And it felt like the writer didn't explain the things that felt important to me early enough, and she's just throwing so many words at it, you know, and that's why I don't know how I feel about it yet.
I feel like that's really common in fantasy books, where they just kind of introduce the world by just telling you about it, or, you know, just kind of showing it, you know, they'll show, don't tell. And you just kind of have to stick with it, and like all these things become clear as you go.
And I agree 100% with that. I feel like we're like by chapters like 5 to 8, we're just now kind of getting into the beginning part of that feeling of like, all right, I'm getting in the comfort zone and how this place works. Kind of.
Yeah.
But the first 3,
first 8 chapters is hard to really tell.
Yeah, and I think that's true of most especially in a series where it's not just a standalone book, because you have 3 books to kind of learn everything.
For sure.
I'll also just put a note in here that there is a appendix in the back that has like explanations for a lot of like slang and like what the difference between the boiling season and the acid season is, too, which I find useful but also annoying because I don't want to spoil anything for myself when I'm looking up this information, but I also want to understand. So
Sure.
I get both sides of that.
I think we're gonna have a harder time with that because we're like sectioning out this book instead of just like chewing it all up in one go. Because like otherwise, yeah, you just go through the whole book and then you'd be like, okay. Like certain things would come out, like you said, over time. But we're treating this like a serial where over 3 we gotta wait now. I can't just keep going.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
Yeah.
Water cooler chat though. That's what this is. This was perfect for this.
Another theme that I did like and that did kind of relate to like our current world was just like the prepper theme with everything. Yeah, I like that too.
You're spoiling one of my jokes in my chapter summaries, but that's okay.
Oh,
let's get to the
I want to hear it.
I don't know anything that happened at this point.
All right.
Tell us what happens.
Let's start with the prologue.
Oh, that's novel.
Prologue. We open the book with a woman who has found her son, dead. We are on a continent named the Stillness. It is a vast, unbroken continent, which is on the brink of breaking apart. The largest and oldest city is called Eumenes. For 27 centuries, Eumenes has stood, building in ways not suited for this shaky world. The buildings are tall, they've built balconies, and the bridges are delicate instead of sturdy. These are bold choices in a world as shaky as the Stillness. In the middle of Eumenes stands the largest and most daring building, the Black Star, which houses the Emperor and the Empire's real leaders. On a hill near the Black Star stands a man and an ancient being called a Stone Eater, with skin of white marble. The man thinks about the injustice of the Empire and the city and his fellow slaves who he cannot free. With his mind, he reaches into the bedrock of the city and he breaks it, likely killing the 7 million citizens of Eumenes. This break causes a rift in the continent, starting in Eumenes and running east-west along the land's equator. From the rift comes magma. In time, an ocean will come and fill the rift and split the land in two. For now, heat, gas, and ash will darken the sky. Plants will die, animals will starve. Winter comes and usually lasts for years, even decades. This time, it will be millennia. Above the land, there float large obelisks. They are from a forgotten time and a forgotten people. No one knows how they work or what they do. They are definitely going to be important, probably in Book 3 when our protagonist figures out their intended use and saves the day. We go back to the woman with the dead son. She is in a town, also called a com, short for community. The com is called Tiramo. Her name is Asun, and she is 42 years old. Her son's name was Uche, and he was almost 3. She believes his father has beaten him to death. We see scouts from Tiramo who are realizing there must be a raga in Tiramo, based on the pattern of what is affected by the shakes. Instead of being happy they are alive, they are scared. They're apparently idiots. They also miss an object near a cliff. The object is kidney-shaped and about the size of a small human. The object splits and something resembling a boy emerges slowly. This is likely a Stone Eater. End of summary. I injected a little bit of narrative in there.
I saw that. I think you're completely wrong about the obelisks. I think they're gonna just be obelisks in the sky.
Yeah, just random floating things.
Fuck yeah, that's what they are.
Pattern.
They're decoration. It's aesthetic.
Yeah. All right. So first, I thought the prologue had a pretty interesting style of writing. You don't see a lot of books that are written in the second person where it seems like the author is talking directly to the reader, which I thought was very ironic considering we just talked about Death of an Author, where authors aren't supposed to talk to the reader, or
you know what?
Exactly.
I agree with that sentiment. I don't think authors should talk to the reader. That was awful.
I don't That's not how I saw it. I thought she intended for like Esun to be the protagonist. That's why her chapters are all started with you.
Yeah.
You know, you're supposed to see the world from her perspective rather than the author talking to you. At least that's how I interpreted it.
But
Yeah,
the writing's
it's trying to put you in Esun's shoes.
Yeah, and that was gonna be my question for you guys. Having like a mother, a woman's like perspective put on all of you, because none of you are parents and none of you are women.
I've got 2 kids, 3 more on the way.
You 3 more.
Oh yeah, did you not
Are
know
they
what-
pregnant?
One of them is, yeah, with 3 triplets.
That's congratulations.
That's goats. In
It's
case
due-
anyone's
You're gonna be a
wondering.
grandpa.
It's due in April.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't feel like that was a fine perspective. Like they explained it well. Like I felt the massive depression and just not accepting what's going on. That was kind of going like, what was it, 3 days? She sat there for 3 days before, like basically with doing nothing else and just
Yes.
raw
Yeah.
angst.
There's something about the prologue that you did mention though. It briefly talks about this guy in Humanist and says that this guy is going to be of great importance, but he's never mentioned again in like the next 8 chapters. So
And he will never be again.
I mean, he could very easily be Alabaster.
mm,
I have a theory.
Is it that it's Alabaster?
Okay.
That's
What's your
not
theory?
that.
Or should we get to
We
these
can-
those at
we
the
can-
end?
We can save it for the end.
Okay. So yeah, this is not a ton of information. I mean, it's kind of just okay, some things happen at the beginning, but you don't really know what's going on. So
Yeah.
some guy destroys a town or a large city, 7 million people, and causes, a whole bunch of death everywhere else also in the name of justice.
It's prologue.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
very
prologue.
it's very prologue-y.
The chapter ends with the quote, "This is the way the world ends." And it says that 3 times. And then it says, "For the last time." And I thought, at first, I was like, oh, that sounds ominous. But when I thought about it more, it's like, maybe that implies they fixed the problems. And so this is like the last time it's gonna
That's the
end.
trick.
Yeah.
it's the revolution.
It's very, very Wheel of Timey.
Very well time. All right. Anything else on prologue?
No.
I was really excited about the obelisks.
Yeah.
Really aesthetic. I just want an obelisk floating above me at all times.
Yeah, and that is a theme we'll see around like the different civilizations that have failed there, and
The
they see
thought
like
the obelisk was
evidence.
interesting in a way that it was described as indestructible, like they've been there a long time, but somehow the civilization that built it isn't. So it does spark a little bit of curiosity in me that how did a civilization advance enough to create something like that survives the seasons, not survive the seasons, you know?
Maybe they left the planet. They're like, fuck this place, we're out.
Yeah, this place sucks. It keeps blowing up.
They live on the moon. That's my obelisks, communication devices to get back to the moon.
Do they have a moon?
When the Earth starts being shitty, planet stops being shitty, they'll know because the obelisks. These are awful guys. Okay, anyway, so let's continue, Daniel.
Chapter 1. Esun is an orogeny, which is the non-derogatory name for a raga. Esun's son, Uche, was beaten to death in the family room, an imprint of a hand still visible on his chest. Esun assumes this was done by her husband, Jija. Their other child, Nasun, is missing along with Jija. Esun spends 2 days lying catatonic next to Uche's body until a young man named Lerna comes to check on her. Lerna is a doctor and takes Esun back to his house where she sleeps. When she awakes, she starts coming out of her catatonia. Lerna informs her that there was a sheikh 2 days ago which avoided Tiramo. The people of Tiramo know someone is in orogeny, as they are the only ones who can stop a sheikh. Esun has caused it to miss Tirmo and admits it to Lerna. There are customs and preparations in place for disasters like this. Rask, Tirmo's elected headman, has barred travel in and out of the calm. After Lerna leaves, Esun decides it's time to leave. She must find out what happened to her daughter.
Really sad mom.
Yeah.
Did that
really
make you sad,
mom.
Lexi? Were you a sad mom?
So I definitely like it's weird because right, because like I'm a mom, I'm a woman, and like to imagine just sitting beside like my child's corpse for 3 days didn't seem like super relatable. But I think the author did a great job describing what that would be like.
Yeah. I agree in that, well, not relatable, but I guess for a different reason, because her daughter is still out there and she doesn't know what happened to her. And like these 2 days could literally cost her daughter's life. And
Yes.
yeah, just wasting 2 to 3 days not
One
doing anything.
One
Like,
trauma at a time, buddy. One trauma at a time.
Yeah.
I know that it is that she assumes that her daughter is dead, but
Yeah.
like unless like for me, if I didn't know, like I would, yeah, I would not stop until I knew for sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting that she immediately assumes that her husband did it, despite the fact that she talks about how her husband, never laid a hand on anyone or never laid on a hand on her. And her husband would, anytime somebody would say raga, would, chastise them and, say he doesn't want the kids hearing that kind of language. So it really doesn't sound like the husband is somebody who is just going to all of a sudden beat his son to death.
This is all from her perspective, though.
Yeah.
Maybe this guy's a dick, and she's
Also,
just
he's
like,
not around, right?
Yep.
Like
be
his
gone.
lack of presence, his absence is actually speaks wonders, right? Like who else would be responsible?
I mean, somebody else who found out that they were Erogenes and came and beat his son to death, and he took his daughter out of there before the town could come and murder her.
And also killed the husband in the process. I mean, you have to think of it from her perspective, right? The culprit is the guy who's not here, right? Like who else is she supposed to blame? She can't just logically process that, someone else must have done it and framed my husband, like.
But it's the like instant assumption, at least as far as we can tell, where she hasn't even considered anyone else.
Well, okay. Well, here's the other thing though too, is that she didn't feel comfortable enough telling her husband what she is. Right.
Oh yeah. Well, can you blame her?
Yeah.
Well, there was somebody else who knew, right? There was a few other people who knew what she was, but she did not feel comfortable enough telling her husband she had this fear. She's always had this fear, right?
So
she didn't tell Lerna. Lerna figured it out himself. That's what he said later on.
Right, but she confirms it though, and like it's understood.
And what if the dad thought the kid was like starting this thing and like thought, let's go save the world by murdering this small child?
Except it happened before the thing happened, because she was laying by her son, or she was laying by Uche when the thing came around, and then she blocked it.
I thought Uche did it. I thought Uche protected the town, and that's how it was revealed that he was Erogenes.
No, but that is what the town members are assuming. But the timeline is wrong, and she admits that she's the one that blocked it from hitting. Because she was like, the house would have collapsed on my son's body, and she was like, I have to protect it.
I thought when she was saying like it was so easy, even an infant could do it. That's why Uche was able to do it.
I had a different theory. I thought maybe Uche was in the middle of discovering his abilities and was starting something, and that's why the father beat him to death. And then the father, trying to protect the daughter, takes the daughter out of town. Maybe that's one possible theory. I'm not saying that that's the case, but
it's kind of the same lines that I was thinking. Like he started it, not that he stopped it, but I don't know. The thing is, I didn't realize. Like again, my comprehension on the first quarter of this book so far is not fantastic. Trying to ingest everything. So I must have messed up that timeline as well.
It sounded like a start of a revenge story, typical revenge story, kind of. That's my first impression of chapter 1. Not that there's so much to go off.
I'm gonna go on the record with the father definitely did not kill the son and took the daughter away to save her. That's my official prediction. Well, we'll see.
Kid killed himself. Makes sense.
I
Quit
think
hating
it's very
yourself. Quit
possible
hating
the
yourself.
father. I'm gonna go on record and say I think it's possible the father killed the son to actually protect everyone. As we later learn that, you know, you want to stop an origin, you have to be really quick. Otherwise you're the one who's dead. So it's very possible the father did it and then took the daughter away to save her from everyone else.
As much as it disgusts me to agree with Leonard, I
Yeah.
I think I'm on the same page.
I also agree with Leonard.
All right. So moving on, there are different use casts in this world, and one of them is strongbacks, resistant, innovators, maybe more that we don't know about, but those are the three we've heard about. And every person is part of a different use cast, and that's like part of their name. Leonard, what do you think resistant is? The doctor, Lerna, I believe his name was resistant.
To be honest, I'm so confused by all those names because when I heard, like, first one I heard is Strongback, right? I expected maybe a little bit of description, like, oh, these people are historically, some trait that earned them that name. But when those terms are thrown around, I wasn't sure what to think of it because there was like no further context. It was just, oh, this guy has a strong back, or that guy resistant maybe because they never get sick. Innovators are the ones who come from a line of people who invent things. Like that's the first impression, but it's not enough for me to formulate an opinion on. I don't think the author has told us enough about what those mean yet, or rather, we have not read enough of the book to really relate, like what these terms mean. It just felt like a race or like a descendant of some people.
So I think when Lerna, like, she was thinking about how he went, and when he came back as a doctor, one other group had wanted to claim him as part of their use cast, but then the resistant won, and so he became resistant. And so I think it's just like you kind of join a group or a group accepts you. And then when she's trying to escape the city, she says that there are strongbacks like guarding the walls. Even though I think they're minors mostly, as in people who mine, not underage people.
Why not both?
Possibly both. Anyway, I really like the world building in this chapter. I feel like by the end of this chapter, you have a pretty good sense of what's going on in the world and between the sheiks and kind of the hatred for the Erogenes, and yeah, that was really good.
So, at least the audiobook, you could probably have an appendix, like Lexi mentioned. The audiobook has, like, they tell you there is an accompanying PDF so you can follow along with what these things are as they're talking about it, which, just real quick, like, I think you're supposed to use it for figuring out what the fuck a resistance is, not just assume. And I think that's awful writing, but instead of just like giving you better context clues, but using this as an example though, can I just read the description of this real quick, or do you want to just skip it?
What a resistant is?
Yeah. Is that too much spoilery?
No.
What if you find out later?
Look it up anyway.
What if we find
I
out?
don't think we will.
I mean, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, go for it.
Well, because like it's one of the 7 common newscasts, but they're individual. It's just they're individual selected. Yes. Spoilers. Resistance are individuals selected for their ability to survive famine or pestilence. So basically, they're responsible for caring for the infirm and dead bodies during the seasons. So he's a doctor, so he's a resistant. I don't feel like that was a spoiler. I feel like that's just a description.
No, like At least
Like-
in the audiobook, the very first thing they say is like there's an accompanying PDF. Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is intended for you to go back here and look because
Right.
Yeah.
And these
like,
are very
things like this and like the appendix are things I usually just look at when I'm like done with the book to give
Mm.
clarity.
Sure, but like for example, I'm going to use the Stone Eaters, which might be a huge spoiler, right? But the description here is literally spoiler free. Just saying a rarely seen sentient humanoid species who resemble stone. Little is known about them. They're specifically not telling you about it
Yeah.
because by this point you're not supposed to know about it.
Yeah.
It's
Gotcha.
so it's just it's nice to have, but it feels lazy to have too. Anyway, so onward, I guess, if we're ready for.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do we know they like the author did that, you know? Like that could just
Oh,
be
I have no idea.
the audiobook company or whatever. Just
Well, it's at the back of your book too, right?
I don't know. It's an ebook. I have not gone to the end.
Leonard, physical copy.
It's an extra section. It doesn't. It
They're
doesn't say at
supposed to
the.
get all the spoilers.
He just read the ending. It's fine.
Yeah.
It was the dad all along. It was
There's no.
the dad
there's no,
using the
like-
obelisks to kill them. Ah, that makes sense.
There's no chapter title chapter list, so I don't know if there's appendix or not.
If you go like the last couple pages.
Oh yeah, there is. Yep. Yeah, it's like a dictionary.
So, like, I do agree. Like, I don't think it's the best form of writing. Like, I thinking of Stormlight Archive, like that appendix I found like very useful, just because like there's like a graph and like things that you cannot explain in text that you would need an appendix for. But this, it could have easily been fit in with the world building because like it's such a cool setting and there's lots of opportunity for the author to put that information in. Like this isn't a long book. The chapters are not very long either.
And that's
And
probably why.
there's like prose like within like especially those second person style chapters, but like to look at the appendix I think is like an interruption that I would not like
Yeah.
to have to do.
Imagine
I feel
were
like you
in-
just don't do it then, right? Because like
Right.
we're only a third of the way through the book, so it hasn't been important that there are 7 use casts. So it's not really like information we need to know.
But we didn't know what a resistant usecast was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Besides for just guessing.
We also don't need to know.
Fair.
Like
I mean,
I'd
we
say
don't need to know a lot of things.
It,
that
it
we
feels like
find
this is
out
video.
about.
It feels video gamey. It feels like if I was walking along, Clippy would pop out and be like, "Hey, resistance is this." You know,
This feels
it's fine.
exactly like almost every fantasy book where like
Oh,
you're
you know,
not
I
gonna
know.
get all the information in the first 8 chapters. They're gonna
You're right, but also most fantasy books aren't this short. But maybe we find out in book 2. Who knows?
yeah, we're in the first third of book 1 of 3. So
That's fine.
we got a long way to go.
We're picking it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like these little details that are snuck in that we don't like expound on. Like I'm not gonna have those details and fully understand those details unless I read through it again after I've read through it one time.
Yeah.
This does feel like a multi.
And I don't
thing
like
already.
that.
Oh,
It
wow.
didn't
I
feel
don't like
very
that. I
fluid.
feel like I need to read through it again to really understand the book.
You're not gonna like Cosmere. You should probably stop those ones now. Then.
All right. I got one more question.
What's that?
Lexi,
Yeah.
do you feel like you understand what's happening in the world in a general sense, and are you interested in it?
Okay. I am interested. I do feel like I understand what is happening. I feel like this ties in with the theory that I have. I was gonna wait till the end to say my theory,
Ooh,
but
we'd save it to the end then.
I think it's a really cool setting. I am definitely gripped by it. I love natural disasters. I love this idea of these seasons that like tear humanity apart, right? And like civilization disappears and then we have to remake. I think that's such a fascinating idea. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier, I don't like how it seems post-apocalyptic rather than high fantasy. I'd rather just have straight up high fantasy.
Yeah. I feel that. One concern I had was And I wrote this down after reading this chapter, and this gets. I feel this even more after future chapters, but I wrote I was concerned that I'm not going to like Asun after this, just because of her spending 2 days laying next to her
You still hung out
son
on that?
when her daughter is, and well, like as the protagonist, right? You kind of want to like them and root for them, and I've quit a lot of books because I just don't like the protagonist or any of the characters enough to like keep reading it. I'm a very character-driven reader, and she is not making a good first impression.
I'll say this now. Esun's chapters are my least favorite of the bunch.
Okay. Yeah. That's fair.
I really hated when she killed Vrask.
Yeah.
But it's just like it really hurt me because I was like, hey, this guy's looking out for you. Like he like understands. He doesn't like abhor you. And yeah, it just felt unjust.
For sure. All right. Should we move on? Chapter 2?
Yeah, let's go.
Chapter 2. Demaya is a young Irajani girl who's been locked in her family's barn for several days in a khan called Palela. It's cold, she doesn't have a bathroom, and she is scared. Demaya had nearly killed a boy at school when he pushed her into a puddle of mud. She instinctively started to suck in the heat around her, which would have flash froze everyone nearby. She gained control and stopped herself before anyone was hurt, but not before they discovered what she is. Demaya's mother is meeting with a man. Demaya believes she is being sold to a child slaver, but soon finds out he is a guardian named Shafa, and he will be taking her to Eumenes, to the Fulcrum, to learn to control her erogenic powers. There's a long conversation between the guardian and Demaya's mother, where he chastises her several times, and Demaya realizes her family doesn't hate her, but they are scared of her. Shafa explains several things to Demaya. The Erogenes of the Fulcrum serve the world and are therefore tolerated. Erogenes are born that way, they aren't created, and never let the normies see you cry. It isn't safe. Shafa and Demaya leave on his horse. Demaya doesn't look back.
I hate Shafa.
Wait,
You hate
Spoilers.
Shafa?
this is kind of why, like, I do think we should be, like, chapter specific a little bit, because, like,
Okay.
because Shafa's
I hate
great.
Shafa specifically in this chapter. I think he's going
really?
to rape her. I get those vibes.
Is it
Oh,
because
The first
is
20,
it all
like
is it all the erogeny?
I like Shafa in this chapter until my
no,
mind changed
creepy,
later.
grooming, manipulation, like everything. Like, oh, you're gonna be safe with me, and like it's all hallmarks of somebody who wants to do you harm. It definitely feels like trust me so I can take advantage of you.
To be fair, that is like just not to call out just general gender perceptions, but I think that's an incredibly fair perspective from someone who's grown up, probably taught, look out for these kind of things. Whereas we don't have, we're not the ones getting groomed. Maybe Leonard, but not me, Daniel.
I'm just imagining someone who goes to an orphanage to adopt a child. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't behave like Shafa, how would you behave?
I was gonna
Like,
say,
what is
Even
a-
in that,
I felt so yeah, I'm totally with Leonard. I felt he came off way more as like savior than groomer here.
Yeah.
And obviously you're
but that's
right.
the first sign.
But
like, red flag. I thought he was going to sexually abuse her. It was like
it's also like
I wish I had a.
would
Do you have the PDF somewhere? Because like I will tell you specific lines that are just like red flag.
You mean like when he touched the back of her head?
Oh,
No, not even that. Like that was good story building. I thought that was like very unique. I think that was cool. Like, but the entire like chastising her mom for like not giving her a blanket and not letting her poop in the corner. Like,
See,
I mean, that just seems like basic decent humanity.
but the way he
Mom's
did
being
it.
a terrible person.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
no, but I think there are some things that he did that showed that he wanted to protect her, right? Like when he told her not to cry because it's dangerous for her. I thought that was like a pretty good move because I later understood. At first I was like, why did he tell her that? then later on when they describe more about their powers and how it's very related to emotion, I think when they cry, people get really terrified. It's like, shit, is this guy going to be out of control and kill us all? And that maybe that's why he gave her the advice, don't cry because it's not safe. And I thought, I felt like he was genuine at trying to help her. At least that's how I perceived it.
I mean, yeah,
You can help somebody that you want to abuse.
that is true. But I mean, that particular interaction definitely was that, because if you know that they're erogenous,
Yeah.
that
They are an erogyny.
That
They're
they are an
supernatural.
erogyny. Yeah,
They're supernatural.
You're not going to trust anyone that's got big old superpowers to be emotionally
especially
expressive. Yeah, especially a child. That's why we murder a 3-year-old and run away with the sister.
There is something to him, like, regardless of his intentions, kind of like she was almost definitely going to die if he doesn't show up, right?
Yeah.
Because the town knew now, and we've seen how like the common people treat Ragas.
So
Okay.
That's come on, man, really?
And that's where I would like a little bit more world building, right? Because they say, like, later we learned that, like, if they kill them fast and quick, that they're likely to be killed, the Raga, the erogyny. However, with how much they fear her and how powerful, like, erogyny are, like, I think that there are many erogynies that escape their towns and live under the radar.
Do they specify like what age it starts showing off at?
Not really. They
don't think so. They do say like even an infant can like feel it and kind of control.
So like, how does like not every temper tantrum in their toddler stage not just set everybody off? Like that's why the 3-year-old's getting nailed, right? Like that's why
I think it's because it's like instinctive, not to like destroy stuff, but to like flatten stuff, smooth things out.
Or sucky freeze people to death.
Right,
they did address that later. They said that a lot of younglings or the children, they don't actually discover their powers because they died discovering it. You know, it's probably like a very high percentage of death rate for people with those powers. They probably acted out of fear or some sort of emotion that got themselves killed.
That is later.
Yeah.
Anyway, even in this chapter, I get bad vibes from Shafa.
I mean, you crushed it. So
Shafa vibes.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, yeah, I super didn't get that at all.
Which
is why I love the later chapter, because it was like he goes from like hero to villain, like
in no time flat.
Yeah, and it was, I thought, so well done. But
yeah,
we'll get there. So Shafa tries to make her feel better, arguing that, you know, a bunch of kids come to worse fates and that her parents are doing the best they can. What do you think of that take?
Pre or post reading?
Like at that time.
I mean, in that sense, the parents did
I guess
let the kid live, right? Like, it's because if the parents were really bad parents, they would have just killed her after discovering her powers. So if it at the end there, I didn't feel like they were that bad because they tried to get her out. Like, sure, they gave her away, but that was the better option than having the townsfolk discover who she is and kill her. So I felt like the parents didn't really show it, but what they did was probably the better choice.
Yeah. The townsfolk did know about her because, you know, the incident happened at school.
Yeah.
And so the kids around her knew. Yeah. I disagree though. I think her parents are terrible. They literally locked her in a barn for 2 weeks without a blanket or a coat in the cold and made her shit in the corner. And like,
she's faking
do something else.
She's faking being cold.
Yeah.
That was procedure though. Like all the communes do that. when they discover.
Well, you know what you do? You take your child who you're worried is going to get beat to death, and you get the fuck out of there. You don't just lock her in a barn. You do
and you
something
all
else.
die. Like,
I mean, not necessarily.
I mean, the world is a shitty place. Do you want to live in that kind of world? I don't want to be outside the commune. It sounds horrible.
Yeah,
I feel like it's 100% death if you leave the commune. That's what it feels like with the way it was built.
I mean,
I don't
there were
think
a lot
get
of
the
people
fuck out
traveling.
is as simple as you say it. It's you don't
Yeah, but,
just get. The
I think
fuck
it would be that simple if she was an only child.
But these people have a mortgage. They've got, they've got they got things to do. They got a life there. They can't just pick up and leave because some kid starts shitting out water everywhere, freezy water. Like I don't know, man. Like I get not just leaving. I mean, I'm not saying that it was the best choice for being morally right, but that it sounds like infant mortality rate in this place is awful anyway. Like just pop out another one and continue on.
I think if she didn't have a brother, I would hate them more for what they did.
Yeah.
Like I still don't like them, but like they do have another kid that they have to think about.
Sure.
I've got comments, but it'd be spoilers for later chapters, so it doesn't really matter. I'll wait until later.
Are they more of the
Not
fuck
ridiculous?
your kid? Just
No.
Send her out in the snow.
No, you don't send her out in the snow. You just leave her in the garage and hope she makes it.
Excellent. Go. Chapter 3. Asun is deciding on a plan. She knows she's in danger from a mob because of the hatred and fear this world has of Orogenies, despite the fact that she's just saved most of their lives. The roads are packed with refugees, and the residents of Tiramo may soon figure out she's an Orogeny. She needs to get out of Tiramo and find her daughter. She grabs her Doomsday Prepper bug-out bag and goes to find Rask, the town leader. Asun finds him in a seldomly used town library. Rask is initially frightened, but she assures him that she's not going to hurt anyone. Rask tells her that Jija and Nasun were last seen on Jija's card. Nasun was alive, which gives Asun hope. Rask seems like a genuinely good person who lost his Orogenic sister to an angry mob. He decides to walk Asun to the gate to let her out. They walk through the comm, and Asun draws many looks, but they make it to the gate without incident. Rask orders Kara, one of the gate guards, to let Asun out. Kara and another woman glare at Asun, not wanting to let her leave, much less live. But Rask gets in Kara's face and orders him to open the gate and let Asun out. Kara relents and carries out the order, but when Rask turns his back, Kara nods to the woman who trains her crossbow on Asun and fires. They quickly learn that trying to shoot someone with superpowers is a bad idea. Asun freezes the air around her, causing the crossbow bolt to shatter into a million frozen flakes. Asun goes full villain, murdering the people around her, including Rask, by freezing them. Below the ground, she breaks open the aquifer, which is the only source of water for the people of Tiramo. She causes a shake, which collapses several buildings, likely killing many citizens of Tiramo. Asun walks out of the still open gate.
Rip Rask.
You don't
Rip Tiramo.
Don't fuck with a mother scorned.
Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, I really liked the description of like the townsfolk. Like anyone that got too close died. Like,
Yeah.
And it was so nonchalant the way it was described. It was just kind of fun. Like, and it was such a 180 compared to everything else we've seen come out of this lady so far.
Yeah.
The crossbow bolt imagery, freezing, and that was super fun. Maybe the
It
murder
sounds
not
like-
as fun for them, but
It did sound like she maybe had some training in controlling her powers, because she wouldn't have sat right in front of the sun for 2 days without destroying the town if she was really that emotionally, hurt.
I bet you don't get that old without learning how to control it, right?
Yeah. But it makes me wonder about her past, right? Like, did she receive training at the Falk? Well, that's spoiler, but
Fulcrum.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was gonna. There's a bunch of stuff that comes up soon that
Yeah.
makes some of this previous stuff give you better
more
ideas
sense.
of what was going
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
But it's the
Right.
first chapter I start disliking her. That's all I can say.
I thought it was fun. Murder is fun. See, she thinks it's hilarious too.
Yeah. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where I'm not sure I'm gonna like Asun, and this definitely doesn't make her any more likable. She's just murdering people. She literally dooms an entire town, and then kind of just walks out.
That sounds like a town of racists, though. Definitely sounds like a sundown town. They wanted to kill her just because of what she was.
I mean, yeah, this whole world is a town full of people that hate Erogenes.
And it's no wonder why.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
keep fucking destroying their towns. Although, I will say, if you have a bunch of superpowered people, the like strategy probably isn't to just like completely abandon them and make them all like afraid of you so that they have to like do crazy shit to get away from you. I don't know. Like you could easily, especially in a world where there's like shakes all the time, wouldn't you want one of them to like come hang out in your town so that when somebody else blows some shit up, you can be like, oh, our town's still alive.
This is a big like not my backyard door or backyard kind of thing, right? Like everyone loves nuclear power until it's in your backyard. You know?
But
Yeah.
except in this case, nuclear power is literally saving your town
It's true. But this case,
from
literally
things
this
that
case,
happen like all
literally
the time.
this case, it didn't. In fact, it did quite the opposite.
No,
I
it did
think-
save the town though. She saved the town before she destroyed part of it
I think she kind
And
of
doomed
doomed them all in general, yeah.
in the long run. But yeah,
Well,
they would
so
have been
yeah.
flattened.
Slow death.
I think this is also a dangerous line of thinking, right? Because like people who have these powers, like they're still people, right?
I mean, I understand the fear because they're so destructive. Like every time they've been described to cause damage, it's like town ending, city ending, world ending kind of scenarios. Imagine you have several nuclear bombs in your town alone that could go off at any time if you piss them off somehow, if you look at them wrong, you say the wrong things, and in one moment of just not them being able to control their emotions, your whole town's gone. Like, how do you not fear that? It's like you have to be, you're holding on to like this device that you cannot control, and it could end you at any moment, right? And I don't think you want any of them in your town.
Sure.
So I think Leonard would be anti-mutant in X-Men for the same line of reasoning.
No, it's not the same at all. Like
Storm,
just
angry
you
Storm.
look at this.
I get what you're saying.
Every originally that was described, whenever they lose control, it's major destruction. You know, it's, I mean, X-Men is hard to it's not even the same comparison. Not all of them have powers that are like just one momently world ending, right? It's completely different.
But it's not completely different because that's just perception. You're not going to hear about the guy who can destroy the world who went to go pick up milk because that's not a story you tell. How many of these people grow up and never actually destroy anything? How often?
It is
Not to
very
mention-
different because you have different powers in X-Men. This is
Oh.
everyone has one nuclear power. Everyone's born with like possibly a nuclear device in them. You know, that's how it sounds like. There's no degree of power that you're contending with.
But this world's solution to that is to beat them all down, make them feel like outcasts, and treat them horribly, which seems like literally the dumbest decision ever. Like they found out, they mentioned here that it's not all genetics, right? Like it's
Mhm.
not all hereditary, I should say. And Erogenes are born from non-erogenic parents. And so, like, you can't just kill them all because it's going to keep coming up. So your next solution was to basically enslave them all and treat them like trash and attack them on sight. Like that's literally the dumbest solution. It'd be much better to befriend them, treat them well, have a few of them in town. If one of them goes crazy, the other two can stop him.
Do you think the other two will stop him rather than join him?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they will grow to have relationships with people in the town if they're
Yeah.
treated as an equal.
This
Yeah.
rolls back to my comment about you don't hear about ones that don't blow things up. This is a player versus character knowledge. The people aren't probably that educated over all the world, especially with their whole societies being destroyed over and over and over again, or whatever, right? Like they're having to restart so much. So the only thing you know and you hear is gonna be about the ones that big and explode, and the ones that you hear about tales of. So you're gonna fear them all, and it doesn't sound like any of these colonies are that big, right? Like we're talking like small town Nebraska trying to decide if X-Men are good or bad. And I know you don't like the comparison, Leonard, but like I can't, like it just feels like they all just have one big superpower of that. Like it feels like that kind of raw just ignorance in a similar vein. I don't know. Probably
I think the fear is justified. Their solution is terrible.
Yeah. Speaking of uneducated, they talk a bit about this library that some elder had wanted to build and then now nobody uses. What are the odds that there's an important book in that library that's going to come into play somewhere way down the line? I feel like there was too much information about this library for it to be just like, oh, he's just hiding in the library.
There was more information about this library than there were about the use casts. So it better make another visit in our story.
We're gonna find out.
Otherwise, it's just really shitty world building.
Obelisk information's in there. It's fine.
I mean, I think it also tells us that people don't read a lot of books in this world. They're not very educated. I think it serves more than one purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're right. It does have like the very Scooby-Doo, that locker is slightly different colored, so they're gonna go use it later.
Yeah. So Lexi, after this chapter, how do you feel about Asun? Are you rooting for her, or like, hoping she stubs her toe for every person she's murdered?
Oh my gosh. I feel like she's still crazy in a haze of losing Uche. She's not thinking clearly. So like I give her a little bit of leniency here. But like again, murdering Brask just really hit really hard for me because like I really like Brask. Like in the 2 minutes we got him.
Yeah. Okay. Follow-up question. How many murders until you're not on Asun's side?
Okay, so this may be the utilitarian in me, but again, she saved that town from dying. As far as I'm concerned, everyone in that town owes their life to her.
So she kills all of them but one, then she's still good?
I mean, if they want to kill her, I think they deserve to be killed by her. Which is why Brask hurts.
Yeah.
Feels bad.
The problem is, much like the people who hate the Orogenies, she is killing indiscriminately, and there's probably some children out there who don't care one way or another about her.
Where's her daughter?
Somewhere with her father, presumably.
Yeah, what if they were next door at the pub? They just lost all their water and she's about to bolt? What if she's murdered her own daughter and husband?
Yeah.
Very, very puzzled again. I don't think she's thinking clearly, but it's not enough for me to like hate her. There's also the meta knowledge of knowing that she's the protagonist, so there's definitely going to be some like redemption.
You think she's gonna be the protagonist all the way through?
Maybe she's the villain.
Oh, you guys!
Is this your theory that we're trying to get to? Okay.
All right. Let's move on to chapter 4. Chapter 4. In the Fulcrum, where the Guardians and Orogenies train, there's a pecking order marked by the number of rings, with 10 rings being the highest. Cyanite is a 4-ringed woman talking with her senior, Feldspar, who is ordering her on a mission. She will accompany a 10-ringed man named Alabaster on a mission to Alia, where a harbor is blocked up by coral. Using their orogenic abilities, they will unblock it. Cyanite feels this task is beneath her. In addition to this mission, Cyanite is ordered to have a child with Alabaster. Cyanite goes to meet Alabaster and finds him in a bad mood. She immediately hates him, and they are both very rude with each other, which is how all great romances start in books. Cyan informs him that they're going to be fucking, and he's appropriately appalled, although he's had plenty of women sent to him in the past. We learn Alabaster is the latest in a long lineage of Orogenies bred in the Fulcrum. Cyan, on the other hand, is a feral, a derogatory word for someone born elsewhere. Alabaster is full of anger and hatred towards the system. He gives in and they have sex. Then he asks, "What's your name again?" Bold move. They decide on a plan to leave for the mission the next day, and Cyan leaves. The chapter ends with a conversation from centuries ago, when the 23rd Emperor of Sanzed talks about how to control the Erogenes through cultural expectations and fear.
So smut aside, which this is a very smutty chapter. This is where like it started getting really interesting because it's like now you actually get to start seeing structured society and how it's operating and revolving around all their erogenous zones, especially in this chapter.
Their erogenous zones.
So like this, yeah, this class system is it's interesting. It's fun.
Yeah.
I really like I Cyanide, which I'm gonna just keep calling her. I
That's
think
how it sounds in the book, in the
Yeah.
audiobook.
it's
Oh,
just
cyanide.
yeah. So I just like how blunt she's just super straightforward right off the bat, and then
Yeah.
he's just kind of like it's one of those. It's a fun dynamic because she's definitely the daddy of the relationship, even though he's like the super strong mage guy.
Yeah. So reading that chapter summary did remind me that, like, because I wrote fucking in there, and that reminded me that that is what she said, and that I do remember being kind of jarred by it, but more like not jarred that like she's using the word fuck, but more like, oh, they're using this, or she's saying that, in this situation, because before she said it, we didn't actually know that's what she was being ordered to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting.
Oh, we definitely knew that's what she was being ordered to do. What
Really?
do you mean? You knew that she was being sent to do sexy things from her conversation with Feldspar.
I definitely didn't know that.
It didn't occur to me until she said, "I'm here to fuck you." That's
Which-
like, that's
Are
when
you
I'm
kidding
like,
me?
Have
Yeah.
you ever heard that men don't get signals? Like you need to be told
Men
out,
are
right?
really oblivious. Like
You
it was
you have to say, "I'm here to fuck," like
It
with
was-
the eyes and everything.
Oh my god. It was the entire undertone of the conversation.
Undertone.
With the,
You know what became out not undertone when she said she's there to fuck.
like even going up to the door, you knew that she was having to do something that she wasn't wanting to do. She was going to this man's empty quarters. Like it was, man, I wish I had the book so I could like read you sentences that are like, this is clearly
It's
this is
definitely
what.
uncomfortable, yeah.
Well, not
Mm,
uncomfortable.
it's
It's just
not
what intended. Like
Yeah. So-
before says that.
I thought she just didn't want to go on the mission because she thought like going to clear coral out of whatever is beneath her, and so I thought she was just felt like she was being punished, and she didn't want to go with some rando.
Because she is down with getting pregnant, though. Like that's in this chapter. Or is that the next one?
That part did seem to
This
is
bother
the-
her the least in her
Like,
conversation with Feldspar.
this
She's
is
like,
the chapter.
it was the same. Okay, because she's like, yeah, dude, I'm down to be pregnant, kick out a baby in a couple months. Somebody else takes care of him, and I get up my rankings, and I get this cool connection with this 10 dude. It's like the weirdest LinkedIn account. Like it's there's.
I think she was not at all down for that. No.
There was a part that was like literally she made pretty much that comment verbatim.
He offered to refuse. He offered to refuse.
He
said
offered to
can't
refuse, and she said, yeah, like it's the offer where the guy with all the power is like, oh no, we don't have to do this, but she knows she's not getting the raise if she doesn't.
True. That was definitely a part, but I think it was more of a. I guess it's not that bad. Not like I guess. Yeah.
I think she expects it because it's like expected of erogenic women in this society to make babies.
Yeah.
And so I think she's like accepted that, but I don't think she's like happy about it or wants to do it. I think she really doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, so like I can't remember if it's in this chapter. I think it's in this chapter because this is where they talk about like pregnancy and like excelling like your contribution to society and get her closer to that fifth ring.
Yeah, that's this chapter.
Okay. And also in this chapter, she says that she doesn't want to be pregnant. Like she literally voices that because like it's going to change her body. And like to me, like that was like, heck yes, pregnancy changes your body.
Yeah.
And so like she does specifically voice that she does not want to be pregnant.
Yeah.
Majority of the
and-
gaming consoles. I think
Well-
that was maybe just a self-justification part that stuck out in my mind then about,
Okay.
oh, well, I don't have to raise the kid. Oh,
Well, yeah,
and
yeah.
it jumps my status. Like,
Yep.
justifying the process. Not that, like,
It can be both, right? Like,
yeah.
There was something else about this chapter.
And I think the other comment on that was like, oh, well, if it's not you, it's going to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Yes.
He
Yep.
said, not me, someone else. She was thinking about her senior as well, because her senior said she had 6 children.
Mm-hmm.
So if she wasn't the one carrying it, her senior might end up being the one carrying it, and that loses her favor.
Definitely.
Also, going back to Daniel's chapter summary, there was definitely the trope of like 2 grumpy lovers at the start turning out to be very like comfortable with each other.
Yeah. They're doing it a little backwards, starting with the sex, but
Yeah. Which is kind of part of the trope though, right?
yeah. Well, is it?
I mean, it doesn't have to be straight up sex, but being like forced together in an awkward situation,
Oh,
like
sure.
shimmering together, like that closeness of body,
Should be.
Yeah.
like in a tunnel.
Yeah. I got very slavery vibes from this chapter. Like people
Okay.
being bred for their strength and just this whole society and how they treat erogenic people.
Yeah, I think it's part of them, like the society controlling them, making them more like subhuman, right? Because you breed
Yeah.
cattle, you breed horses, you breed orogeny.
So I kind of internally took it as less the slave side of it and more of like, and I know this their whole trope is that they're slave beneath humans, but almost like not royalty, but like an upper class, like especially him with his 10 rings and stuff, like an upper class citizen of inbreeding, and basically they're bringing her in to like not soil they're not trying to soil the line, they're trying to expand their genetics, so they're not just straight up inbreeding, but like this is like them trying to keep their royal lines and their noble lines and what have you.
Arranged marriages kind of type of vibe.
Yeah, not in a complete like, yes, in that under that slavery tone, sure, but and only in the sense that society keeps you a slave.
Yeah.
So one thing this chapter made me realize was this is our 3rd perspective, and they've all been erogenies. And I was wondering if we were going to get a perspective of, they call them stills, but a non-erogenic person. Be interesting to get a different viewpoint. But we'll see.
Like living in fear all the time. Like my neighbor's an orogeny, he's gonna explode at any moment.
I'm guessing they don't all. I mean, we have nuclear weapons on this planet, and we don't have that fear. Although I guess
Some people do.
erogenic people actually do stuff too. So, yeah, not a great comparison. All right, chapter 5.
Yes.
Chapter 5. Soon after leaving Tirco, walks until nightfall. She settles in a field and watches the red light over the mountains. She knows the red light is magma and fire, spewing up from a rent in the earth. She reflects on the travelers she has seen this day, people who have lost loved ones, their homes, or both. Suddenly, Asun feels another presence and finds a boy sitting near her. She didn't feel his approach. He says his name is Hoa, with no use cast or com name. Asun lends him her bedroll, and they fall asleep.
Ta-da!
Okay. This is the chapter where I had my big revelation,
Epiphany.
Really?
my epiphany.
Hit us with it.
Okay. Are you guys ready for this?
So ready.
Okay. So I had been paying attention to like the second person perspective storytelling versus like third person, because that again is just so like different for me from like the books I traditionally read. And it was here in this chapter that that I theorized, and is my prediction for the book, is that Cyanite, Damaya, and Asun are all the same person, just different times in her life. because
could
they
see
only
that.
talk about this big cataclysm event like in the present in her
Yep.
in Esun's like
Mm.
chapter, but we don't get any other perspectives yet, and it is all from a girl, and it is from these girls from different periods in their life. We have Demaya being taken to the fulcrum. We have somebody in the fulcrum, and then we have this girl Esun who's trying to live low key, not have a family, ended up having a family. So that's my prediction, and it was. This
I think you're
chapter.
100% right. That's brilliant. I had not thought of that, but I did notice, like in the Demaya chapter, he talks about bringing her to Yemenez, which is the city that just blew up. So obviously, like, it must be a different timeline, or they're far enough away where they don't know that
Mhm.
has happened. But
Yeah,
I
that
figured
could
there was going to be something with time, but I did not think all three of them are the same person. I like that.
That's
that
fun.
is my prediction.
Like, that's
Makes
canon
no sense.
now for me.
You're going forward thinking this. You did it. You
Oh.
changed the story completely
Well,
for
and
Daniel.
it's also because, yeah, never mind. This isn't another chapter that will further cement it in your mind. But just yeah,
One argument against it, in the very first chapter, they describe Esun as she's a woman that has born 2 children. I guess she doesn't get pregnant yet, so maybe, never mind. That doesn't argue against it, unless she's just having all this sex with Alabaster and just never gets pregnant, which is definitely possible.
yeah, that happens. Anyway,
Right.
I love this kid. I thought this kid was gonna be the kid that came from the amber, or at the beginning, the kidney bean shaped
Yeah.
thing.
Sounds like it, right?
Stone Kid. Yeah, but
The
they would have
stone kid.
they would have probably described him as a Stone Kid instead of just like human.
No, because that was like, I'm pretty sure it is that kid.
Is
The
it?
description at the beginning did say it seemed like a human boy.
Wait,
Yeah.
but later, sorry, I don't want to do spoilers,
No,
but like
go.
later, don't we
Good.
find out the kid's a guardian, and guardians are not the same as Orogeny?
No,
Kid's a guardian.
Not yet.
that never happens.
He's got the features like Shafa, but that doesn't make him guardian, I don't think.
Well, no, okay, he's the same race as a guardian,
Yeah.
Which
But I'm
means
pretty
that
sure
he can
he's the
read
boy
her
from
thoughts.
the beginning. Though.
He's got the white eyes.
and he can
Yeah.
read Esun's thoughts,
Yeah.
which
Can
is
Guardians
typical.
read thoughts?
Yeah, Shafa can
That's the
read.
theory, actually.
No, we know for a fact that Shafa can read. Shafa reads Demaya's thoughts.
So
And-
I wanted to like say that that's true. At least that's what I thought would be the case, but I don't want to confirm that yet. I don't know if they can really read minds, because there's also cases where Alabaster knew exactly what Cyanide was thinking about, and like I don't feel like mind reading might be a power here, but it does make me very curious about the Guardians. Why are the Guardians so powerful that they have control over such powerful people, right? Like, what is it about the Guardians? I mean, I'm not throwing the mind reading power out, but I don't think I've seen enough to say that that's 100% true yet.
Well,
Yeah.
So like Orogeny can identify other Orogeny, and I think that kid that came from the ground is an Orogeny, or maybe a Stonewalker, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
So his white skin or whatever is the same as in the prologue. The Earth person
Yeah.
was described with having like the marble white skin.
Right, but I think like her like that Stonewalker literally has like stone skin, whereas this boy has skin that is like albino, right?
Do we know that though? Because he won't let her. Remember, she tries to help him stand up, and
Right,
he
and
says
they
no.
don't touch.
Yeah.
Right, but she can see him like washing up, right? Like she makes a comment that this kid must be albino. There's nothing southern or whatever that word is about this kid, besides the texture of his hair.
Yeah, I don't know. None of that seems like he can't be stone.
Maybe Stone comes later. Maybe the Stone children are just a little bit of marble.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I still think he's a guardian, but
Okay.
Guardians.
I did not
Guardians-
pick up on the mind reading thing at all. So
I had a feeling because of like the way Shafa acts, it's as if he knows exactly what Damaya thinks and what she wants to do at all times. And even okay, that's next chapter. Never mind. We'll talk about it.
I just read that as like he's just perceptive and he's done this a bunch of times before because he
Mhm.
talks about he's had other people and it's not that hard to read small children usually. So I just thought he was good at his job.
Also, that kid didn't even if he could read minds, right? He has more powers than that. He knew exactly where her daughter is. Like
Yeah.
they're faster
Right,
than
because-
hers, right? Like
because guardians know where Irajani are. They
They
have
can
that
sense.
power.
They can sense Rajni, like other
Right.
Rajnis can sense Rajnis.
Kind of. Not as good, not as well as guardians can, right?
But Guardians
I'm-
can.
we don't know enough about guardians yet. That's the thing, because it
Well,
sounds
sorry,
like an
I am-
occupation or title rather than a race. It sounds like they have to do something to become guardians, not that they are born guardians. I feel like Shafa and this kid's race has nothing to do with guardians. It's more like just a trait that they
Yeah.
have, but
Predisposed.
that doesn't automatically make them guardians. At least I don't think so. We haven't seen another guardian, so I don't know.
We
For-
do get the last chapter where they talk about how guardians are the children of erogenic
twos.
people who are
Mhm.
stills.
Yeah. And if they're still, then it doesn't mean that they have no superpowers, which means they should not be able to read minds. But that doesn't sound like a still, right?
Well, again, and we don't know if reading
Yeah.
minds is a like superpower, right? Like it could just
Yeah.
be a thing that some people can do too.
So since we're on this conversation, should we go to the next chapter?
If you'd like to.
That's all we're talking about, so it makes sense to.
One quick thing I wanted to point out. It was interesting. She stopped at the like roadhouse, the little way station or whatever, and was like, looking at the people, like the old man or whatever, and her thoughts were like, who's going to be strong enough to be a warlord in the like coming times and not like. And then when she meets Hoa, she's thinking about stories of cannibalistic packs of children, and kind of gives
Yeah.
you a sense of like how bad things are going to get.
Yeah.
Rick, quick question for you. This
Oh,
one's
I don't
perfect
like
for you.
this. I don't like it.
If our society broke down today and all governments disappeared, how long do you think it would take us to reach this point?
This point.
Not where they're at in the story.
No,
where
no,
she's
no,
thinking
like-
about.
like post-apocalyptic time though, right?
No, I mean like cannibalistic children running around.
Oh, cannibalistic children.
Warlords.
I think it's already happening.
They're everywhere.
They're just realistically, dude, it'd probably take at least like a couple of years, if depending on how well, like what. Obviously, that all depends on what kind of technology gets destroyed and what have you. If we're able to keep farming or not, or if food's how scarce food is in general. Like if it's like all food's gone and we're fucked tomorrow and people are just gonna be dying off in the next week, then we're talking like cannibals are starting up here in like 2 weeks, man.
I do think government completely dies out, then like the food chain is going to die out pretty quick, and there are not a lot of people that know how to farm as much as people like to pretend they know how to farm, and
Is
as
that a
many
dig?
people want to say no. Just so many people in modern society that are like, I just want to move to a farm. And
I
it's
think the
like,
biggest issue is modern
it's not
society
that
just
easy.
don't want to eat bugs. That's what's gonna kill them. They're gonna be like, we don't want to eat these fucking grasshoppers.
yeah,
It's like,
Right.
yeah, dude,
Yep.
that shit's gonna be your food, man.
yeah,
Just start with dogs and cats first, I think, before they get to bugs.
work your way up
No.
Down.
for sure. All right, we ready?
Do it.
Chapter 6. Damaya and Shafa are traveling on Shafa's horse, and Damaya is in awe of her surroundings because she has never left her calm. They stay at an inn in a larger town, and Damaya marvels at the tall buildings, loud noises, and giant beds. As they sleep, Damaya hears Shafa groaning and thrashing in his sleep. He cries out, and she wakes him. He doesn't make any more noise after that. They travel for 2 days and come upon an active fault, which produces new land over time. Damaya can feel the fragility of the land around them. Shafa tells her to stop listening to the earth. Damaya feels ashamed, but Shafa offers to tell her a story, which she eagerly accepts. The story is about a powerful and cocky dude bro who went around destroying cities and towns and declared he was going to kill the Emperor and Eumenes, giving them weeks of notice to prepare. So Shemshima, the Emperor's bodyguard, orders the citizens to destroy Eumenes and leave. Shafa explains that this took away his power, although the explanation is sketchy at best. Distracted by his lack of power, Shemshima kills him with a dagger. Demaya loves this story, seeing good defeat evil. Then Shafa explains that this is the origin of the Guardians. Their job is to protect against people like Demaya. He makes it clear that he views her as the villain from the story and tells her she's incapable of controlling herself, but Demaya insists she can. Shafa stops and tells Demaya that he's going to test her control. He rests his hand on top of hers, which is gripping the pommel. He squeezes her hand harder and harder until her bones break. Demaya screams in pain, but controls her erogyny. She's crying and doesn't understand why Shafa would hurt her. Shafa tells her he loves her, and Demaya believes he's the last person in the world to love her, so she can't hurt him. Shafa shows that he had a knife to her heart the entire time. He would have killed her if she had channeled her erogyny. Shafa sets her bones, and they ride off until nightfall.
He seems like a pretty good dude. I don't see a problem here. Like,
I felt the handbreaking part. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I was reading that. I was
the
like,
writing
whoa,
for that
this
was
is-
really good.
This is the most messed up thing I've read in a long time.
Yeah.
you know, like, how do you test that though? Like, how do you test that control otherwise? You just believe him?
You're really determined to side with the villains in this one, aren't you?
Someone's got to.
Do I? We already got Lexi rooting for us soon. I think that's. I'm just kidding.
She's our protagonist. Literally protagonist, not antagonist.
This chapter was amazing though. It was definitely my favorite chapter. And yeah, we talked about this before, but I really loved seeing how, in my view, Shafa went from being like the savior to the villain. And it was just so smooth and so believable, I guess. And like his actions before weren't like tainted by it, which often happens when somebody goes from being like nice to villain. Lexi, what do you think about Demaya's response in the chapter?
It reminded me of Asun.
Yeah? How so?
Yeah, when she like shuts down and like just goes catatonic.
Yeah. I felt like it was a very good, like just a very good writing of abuse, basically, and abusive relationships, because
Yes.
she's sitting there feeling like nobody could love me, and this is the last person that loves me. And so she's still like, you know, even when she wakes up, you know, she looks up at him and she smiles when he wakes her in the middle of the night, and but then she remembers.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very
And
sad.
And I think that's like all the manipulation that this dude's been doing.
Yeah.
Child, you're a maiden.
Oh, that when he said I love you, like that, like I got so like I don't know. That was it. Like Shafa is number one like villain in this book for me.
Yeah. Probably number 2 for me after Asun, but
Yeah, after the little girl who just got her hands broke.
To be fair, how many people did he kill so far?
Probably a lot. He's probably killed a lot of Orogeny. Or
Yeah, but they're just, you know.
yeah.
But it's probably, you know, Esun
Yeah.
literally killed some people.
yeah, a bunch of people.
Shafa's definitely killed some
Not only that,
people.
but like,
Well, you don't have proof though.
So that deafness, like the way that his knife goes, like
Yeah, maybe he's
the proof is
trained a
in the
lot.
knife.
That's just good training. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an expert.
No, he's probably definitely killed a bunch of people. But some of them might have been about to be a nuke that's going off, so you know, who knows.
Yeah.
Well, we don't judge actions on probably did things. We judge them on actually murdering towns like Asun did,
Soon
least
saved
that's-
the town.
and then murdered a bunch of people. Yeah. Slow clap.
to be
She
fair,
delayed
like,
their suffering.
not only that, I
Established-
guess every time she didn't destroy the town, that was her basically saving it again because she could have
Yeah.
the town.
There you go.
See?
Jeez,
That's
I
it.
can't find a fault in this logic anywhere.
No, that's like infinite lives saved. Think about it.
Did you know I drove home today without running any people over? Like, you're welcome, people.
Seriously. That's not true for everybody.
That the truth. So back to this Demaya situation. There's like a real theme of control in this book with controlling the Erogenes. In chapter 4, you see Cyan not showing any emotion when talking to her mentor, and she talks about how you can't show any emotion to the normal people, the stills, because they're so easily scared. And are there any other themes you've noticed, Leonard?
I like this chapter for another reason. When he told the story of how their powers worked, because I'm not a fan of powers that just like comes out of nowhere and this guy is destructive because it's an innate power. At least there was some explanation to how their powers worked, right? And it was like kind of a fighting chance for people without powers kind of logic. So I appreciated that was at least introduced. You know,
Yeah.
I do
the
think
whole kinetic transference thing.
this guy's a dick, granted. But
Yeah.
how many of him exist out there now just because you're already talking about an incredibly hospitable world, adding in people who can blow up your town to reset everything over? Like, these people need to exist. Maybe not this guy who says I love you and destroys their hand and puts a knife, like, but
fundamentally this
like,
order of guardians
totally needs to be
are
there.
evil.
Totally needs to be there. You got to have the evil paladin. Someone's got to keep the powers in check.
You do need. I'm kind of with Rick on this because you do need checks and balances. Like, right? Like if the Guardians get out of control, the government can come and like chop them up, or they can send Erogenic people after them. But you can't just have Erogenic
Again,
people.
we're treating these people as subhuman.
Oh yeah. I think
I think
that
they're
should
superhuman.
happen.
And
But I think
no,
there should be like a group of people
who watches the Watchmen.
Like even at the end of that chapter where we have that emperor talking about how to control his dinner conversation.
Yep.
It's not about protecting like the world that they live in, right?
Yeah.
It's purely control. Going back to that theme.
Yeah, I agree completely that they're going about it all the wrong way. But I don't think the Guardians, like, as an idea, is necessarily bad, because I think what they're doing is bad, but I don't think having a group of people that can counter a super powerful thing is a bad idea, because 99% of the people have no defense against Erogenic people, so they could just literally become tyrannical, like warlords anywhere they go.
Then again, you also have the fact that if you weren't treating these people like shit, you probably could just be using them as your counter them.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're doing it completely
order
wrong.
Right. Yeah.
They're doing it completely wrong, but having like a group of people like this isn't in and of itself bad.
Gotta have erogenous cops.
But
I mean, they should also have that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's just we have these like super smart people, and we're gonna have another group of like non-smart people. I don't know. I can't come up with a stupid metaphor or an allegory for this, but this
is why
like let them.
I think X-Men is actually a really good comparison to this, as far as like what would happen if the humans fucking like, or what is the Brotherhood of Humans or whatever the hell that the human group that's called that hates mutants, if they just ended up taking over down in the future, or like the Sentinel future or whatever you want to say. Like, it's very similar in how people are being kept down or selectively bred, like Mr. Sinister. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to like take over your comment, but
no. Yeah, no, I just haven't seen any of the X-Men.
Yeah, me neither.
Really...
Falling on deaf ears here.
Yeah, like I get what you're saying. Checks and balances are important. But the Guardians are, in my opinion and my understanding of it, are fundamentally, it is it's not about the betterment of society. It is fully about making Erogenes feel like shit so we can control them. It's about changing society so that we can control them.
Friends
I
of
feel
Which
like
I
the
don't.
society's already there, but like
No.
they're already there hating the Orogenies, and now it's just like might as well have people who can kill them, leaving it
I
all
see
in.
what you're saying, Daniel. I disagree.
Yeah, we can
I
agree to
agree.
disagree.
Actually, I think they
With who?
you do this with Daniel.
With Daniel.
Because the way Origin is described, if there was like no power to challenge them, it's over. Like you can use the argument of treat them nicer all you want, but all it takes is one mistake, one fleeting moment of
Okay, but using
know
that logic, you should just kill them all then. Because
Mhm.
that's
Some of them
actually
believe-
that's
a lot of
what's
them
you can try to
happening.
brainwash them, but that's not 100% effective either.
I think a lot of them do want to kill all of them.
But it's more effective than possibly someone. Let's say you play chess with an Origin, he lost and he's like, no, fuck you, and then you're just shattered into dozens of pieces of ice. Like that's it's that moment, all it takes is one mistake versus being
Right.
able to control themselves all the time, and that's not dependable. You can't just say that let's just treat them nicer, society will be great.
I'm not saying that's the
unrealistic.
solution. I'm saying let the Orogeny make their own orders and have their own training and have their own space.
Well, yeah, I agree
and-
with that. I wasn't
Sure.
saying like no against that.
Yeah, but the thing is, if there was not a power strong enough to challenge them, they will resort to tyranny really fast after. You're saying
I don't
you're
think
in
that's
the-
true though. And
I don't
we
know.
won't know.
We're in the world where everything is scarce, things are getting destroyed over and over again, and there's this group of people with powers to influence all of that. You really think with the lack of education and the whole fend for themselves mentality, they would resort to good, and would enough of them resort to good? I think you're a little optimistic about how good people can be.
I'm saying that there's an assumption being made that if they had their own control and their own education, that they would still be terrible people.
Depends on their education, right?
Right.
I think the
assume that they
likelihood-
should be educated, not brainwashed.
Yeah, but the risk of them going out of control is far greater than not.
Leonard, I think you're having a too pessimistic view of people, because
Hell yeah.
people every day drive cars, which they can run people over. People carry guns all the time, and millions of people do this all the time.
Dude,
I know. Don't
That's
bring
such
up
a poor
guns.
comparison. Like, let's
It's
say my
not
neighbor
though.
carries
Your example was somebody loses at a game of chess and they start killing everyone.
not
That's
killing
like-
everyone,
Yeah.
but even just one person, right? Like, let's say the
That's
thing
the
is
same
the
thing.
No, it's not at all. The difference in power is so vast here. You're not talking, like, let's say my neighbor owns 10 guns or whatever. Am I scared? Not really, because he's not gonna blow up the entire Nebraska just because he got pissed at something. But this one, you're living in a world where this one person whose emotions could just not be in check for 1 second,
And maybe
half
kill
the
a
town
small
dies.
town.
It's
Putin.
so volatile. Like, there is a different degree of power. You're talking
Yeah.
about someone who has so much power that you cannot challenge at all. Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
even in the chapter
But there's a
with,
whole bunch of other Orogenic people around
even
that
with
can.
Cyanide,
Okay.
the description says that if she sometimes thinks that, if Alabaster just looked at her wrong, he would just ice her. And that's a common thing among the Falcon members. Like, she actually mentions that in the earlier chapters too, is that the difference in power is so great that sometimes a wrong step gets you killed. And because
Right.
they have more rings, they get away with it.
It's-
This could happen everywhere.
Yeah, it's like higher stakes for sure. But I think that brainwashing them and like subjecting them to this lower caste in society, once they wake up, once they are aware of what has been done to them, I think that their vengeance will cause the world to end, right? I mean, we have that in the
Yeah.
prologue. I mean, that's the very thing that's happening.
Maybe it's okay for the world to end here. Seems like a good time.
It doesn't seem like a great world.
Mm-mm.
I'm just saying the repercussions of this solution is not a solution. Like it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
But we're
The
picking
thing
up in
is-
the middle of it. Like, yeah. I agree. I don't think anyone disagrees with you like that they're being treated really shitty. I think that but I don't think you're not arguing against Leonard's point of there needs to be a check because there has to be some kind of check for that kind of power. Are you saying there shouldn't be any kind of check? I'm not saying societal. I'm not saying brainwashing. I'm saying there has to be some kind of counter for it.
I think that I might be misunderstanding what you guys are saying by check. By saying check, I think you guys are talking about an outside order that is not orogeny, where I think it should be orogeny that keep themselves in check. Because they are also powerful. I think an orogeny can stop another orogeny, right? They can protect towns.
You need to be able to have other non-orogenies be able to do that too. Just for the mere fact that if you have a country of orogeny and everybody else is around there, how do you ever what if someone in awful power takes over? Like what if there's a orogeny Trump that decides they want to go wage war on the neighboring fucking village? What do you do against that as a non-orogeny? Like what do you do that as what do you do that as an orogeny? So like you can't just
you can go protect a town
as one orogeny against a guy that has an army of orogeny? Probably not. No, no way. We're talking about society.
So we have a group of we could go down this rabbit hole forever. But what I hear from you guys is that the only solution then is just kill all orogeny.
No
one said that.
I'm not. That's not what we're saying at all.
I mean, I do think that, but that's
we're
not
just saying that orogeny should have some sort of check, not because of what. Sure, I don't agree with the current situation, but Lexi, have you considered that in this world that has been rebuilt so many times, this has been tried? Your method might have been one of the things they tried in the past and it didn't work, right?
Yeah,
you have to consider that maybe they resort to such an awful decision because nothing else worked.
But that's the thing is that they don't know if that's worked or not.
Clearly, this whole book's going to be about...
Maybe they do. That's why they erased the stone tablets, right? They talked about that, but that's next chapter. But yeah, I think I'm not saying they're good, but I'm saying that there's a lot in the world that justifies why that is happening.
Yeah.
Hey, so next chapter?
Yeah.
Go.
Chapter 7. In the morning light, Asun sees that Hoa is very odd. He's naked under a layer of mud, his eyes are white, he says he doesn't have parents, and he's avoiding questions about where he came from. Despite this, Asun makes him bathe in the river and gives him an oversized shirt. As they start walking along the road, Hua casually mentions that he knows where Asun's daughter is. He's not even pretending to be human anymore. Asun doesn't notice. So, that's your chapter summary.
So he's totally human, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just a white kid.
For me, this was like super Earth creature, and I wasn't even questioning it at any point. But now Lexi's making me question it, so I don't know. He says, I don't have to eat much. That's not a thing a human says. He somehow knows where Asun's daughter is, which I think we've seen. What Shafa had to mark Demaya so that he could see where she is. Whereas we don't have any evidence that, this kid, Hua, has marked Hasun, I think her name is. And yeah, I don't know. I'm still going with Earth Creature. I forget what they're called, but
Stone Wardens or whatever.
Yeah, or something like that. All right. Let's say hypothetically he's an Earth Creature.
Stone Eaters.
Stone Eater.
Right.
No, really? Is that it?
Yeah.
You're looking at the appendix?
I am looking at the appendix. It's Stone Eater, a rarely seen sentient humanoid species whose flesh, hair, etc. resembles stone. Little is known about them. If this is...
Yeah. So if he's a Stone Eater, hypothetically, what do you think his goal is? He's trying to get close to Asun. Why?
Does he have
I didn't even consider that.
An active goal at the moment? Or is he just a kid just doing his weird creepy kid thing?
I feel like he has that. I don't think if he's a Stone Eater, I don't think he does that whole transformation to look human and then doesn't have a purpose.
I don't think it's a Stone Eater because that's what we know who's in the first chapter, right? Yeah. And it's described as very slow movements, very unhuman, uncanny valley, right?
Yeah.
And that's not this kid at all.
But it's slowly it's transforming too into a boy.
What if he's half Stone Eater? What if he's not even a full Stone Eater?
Oh shit.
Stone Eater or human hybrid.
I think that's what originy come from is stone eaters.
Someone
having
fucked a
sex with
stone.
humans. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like in all the bloodlines.
Also, the last part of the Stone Eater coming out of the tube part was him grabbing like red shards or something, and he was like breaking them out of his little spaceship, Earth spaceship. I don't know what it is.
That's right.
And in these chapters, I think Hua is carrying like a bag that he won't let. He's like very protective of.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
So maybe these originate or the Rajani folk have like, maybe this is just like a fraction of their original power, and this is like him just re-upping the fucking bloodlines.
The true blood.
Yeah,
Blood.
he's making another round of like, we're gonna get these guys ready. They're gonna, and maybe it's not necessarily a bad thing, but
Yeah.
Like,
I guess.
Go ahead,
No
like,
opinions on the boy. I just think that his story still has so much room to grow. Like, there's no point guessing because I don't think I'm going to guess it right. It's just too much mystery around this one character that I'm just going to wait and see.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the fun of predictions, though, right? Like, because sometimes they're super wrong, and those are hilarious in retrospect.
he could just be the watcher, just watching. He's just there to like push things along because things are happening fast enough.
Or the puppet master.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just like, oh,
I do think now that Hua is that thing that came out of the ground.
Oh yeah, talked you into it?
But yeah.
Definitely.
But I'm not sure he doesn't really fit the profile of like the stone eater in the first prologue though.
he's fresh.
You need to read the description of how he formed again because it sounds eerily similar to the description of the boy.
How the lady statue formed?
How that thing turned into the form of a boy, and then there was like some description of how he was very human-like instead of, like he resembled like a human boy, and then the actions that he took, it just felt like the whole description was basically Hoa. At least when I finally heard Hoa, I was like, this must be the kid. And it feels like that idea keeps getting reinforced. And
also when that boy like shape came out of the ground, like I do think it's Hua just because like of all the context clues, but it also laid still for 2 days.
Yeah.
And also moved very slowly, whereas this Hua like moves like a little boy and it has mannerisms like a human little boy. So either that's insanely easily like picked up off of human culture, or I don't know. Maybe he's just
he warmed up.
Maybe
he downloaded all his data.
Or it just responds to who they're around, and this is how he needed to respond to get her attention to
Maybe he boots up faster than your computer.
Oh, my startup time is a lovely 2.7 seconds. So.
Is that good?
I don't know. I just made that up.
Okay, cool. I was like, wait, did you say that timer? Stopwatch? All right. Short chapter. Let's go. No, this next one's a long one. Also, get ready for some boomer humor in this one. So.
Oh my god.
Oh, good.
Chapter 8. Cyanite and Alabaster are on the road, bickering like an old married couple. He keeps falling asleep behind the wheel. She keeps having to yell at him to wake up. At night, they reluctantly have sex. At night, Cyan notices that Alabaster is stopping all the shakes in the area, even the small ones. Rather than asking him about it, she spends 3 days sulking and trying to figure it out on her own. She finally asks, and they bicker. He says he's doing it to help the node maintainers. There are nodes throughout the main part of the Empire. Each node has a maintainer who quiets the major shakes, making the area relatively stable. Cyan has always thought it would be incredibly boring and is glad she's never had to do it. Alabaster gets upset, but doesn't bother doing something as simple as explaining, but instead orders her around and tells her they're going to a node the next day. In the morning, after their daily breeding session, they discuss the stone lore. Alabaster suggests that it's not as infallible as their society thinks. He suggests a lot of things in their society are wrong, and maybe the Orogeny should be in charge. Cyan is forced to question her beliefs. Before the conversation is over, a powerful shake erupts from one of their nodes. Alabaster tries to calm it, but it is strong. He grabs cyanite and links their power, something she didn't know was possible. He's directing her power in concert with his. With their power combined, they're able to prevent disaster by calming the shake. They are exhausted and pass out. When they wake up, it's evening and Alabaster is insisting on going to the node. Cyan talks some sense into him and they leave in the morning instead. They ride hard for the node. At the node, Cyan discovers the truth. Node maintainers are Erogenes who the Fulcrum didn't trust to control their power. They've been lobotomized until they are running on instinct. Their erogenic instinct is to quell shakes in the area, making them perfect for this job. Erogenes also instinctively protect themselves. Someone from the town had paid to abuse this one, and he had reacted on instinct, causing a powerful shake, killing everyone at the node station. The node maintainer was one of Alabaster's sons. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Death is the fifth and master of all. So this is a very heavy chapter.
It's really fun, lighthearted. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't confirm it's his son, right? He said it might be.
Alabaster has like very distinctive looks, and
Well,
I think they pretty much all but confirmed it, and the son looked like exactly like him.
didn't say exactly like him. I mean, the description said that that's the feature that the Eastern Coast something people have, right? It's just a theory, but I don't think it was ever confirmed that this guy is definitely his kid.
The first time I read it, I didn't think so, but the second time through, it seemed like they were definitely basically saying, yeah, this is his kid.
There's a lot of things that aren't directly said
Yeah.
that are just implied.
Yeah.
With this specific author.
Yeah.
Because it's 12 kids.
This is the chapter where I started to become really curious about the Guardians, because this looks like the kind of thing that would set Alabaster off. Imagine him like seeing this for the first time, but it's not the first time for him, right? So, and being as powerful as they described him, he somehow still is, he still fears the Guardians. That means that that makes me really wonder, like, what do the Guardians have on them? Why are they that powerful, and why are they that high up the pecking order? It's. Any other thoughts? It's a pretty long chapter.
Obelisks. It's kind of fun just seeing some of the other influences I feel like that made its way into here, like the linking the abilities and things like the just baseline reminded me of like the Aes Sedai from Wheel of Time. Being able to borrow somebody else's power kind of tells a little bit about why it's an awful idea to have an entire society of them as well. Because imagine if one guy could just take everyone's power and be all powerful, split the earth in twain, because he's got 40 other ones that are all 10 rings underneath him.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
he took the power. He didn't ask for the power. He took her power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you don't know if he has that ability because he's a 10 ringer, or this guy seems to have traveled a lot and like questions a lot and has done research like outside their, whatever education they're getting back at the Fulcrum.
Learned a lot.
It seems like this is not something like Fulcrum
normal, like that standard.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
That was the question I had.
Yeah.
It's like, is this something special, or did the Guardians know about this? Is it something that they want Origine to use? Absolutely not. But
no, this is probably something they're actively keeping in the dark.
Yeah.
I
would think so.
I mean, yeah, let's tell the guys who can blow us all up how to get more blow us up power.
Yeah. Yeah, how do you guys feel about the lobotomized Origine?
That seems pretty standard. I mean, it makes sense. Like, what do you got to do to it?
The description was awful, but I don't think it was surprising. Kind of saw it coming,
I thought you were going to support it there for a second, Leonard.
I expected something awful. I just, didn't really know what to expect, I guess, and it wasn't lobotomized kids.
It makes sense. I mean, it does make sense, though. Like when in a bad sense, it's not good, but it does.
Yeah.
It's a reasonable response.
It's logical.
Yeah, logical response. It's like, oh well, let's get rid of their emotions, and like if they had mood suppressing drugs, they probably would have used them, but we're in a post-apocalypse society, so let's just poke some of the brain out and call it a day.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Lexi, I'm not supporting this. Stop doing that weird smug, like you're an asshole smile.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like being able to understand it is like justifying it.
That is definitely not the case. Understanding
thing
why
is-
It's my feeling.
Okay, fair. Understanding, I do not feel like understanding a motive justifies the action ever. Like, I think
No.
that those are two big things you
Yeah,
have to be able to separate to even, like,
Yeah.
how else do you become a detective? Like, that's
Well, we all know detectives are sociopaths.
fair.
What was that? What's that 70s Netflix show that where FBI are interviewing serial killers?
Mind of a Killer or something. I don't remember.
Mindhunter.
Mindhunter. So,
All right. In
how
the show,
far? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
hold on. There was a point to this. Not I was just.
I thought you were just like interested in it.
So in the show Mindhunter on Netflix, right? It takes place in the 70s where the FBI at that time, society in general was much more like Christian, and they thought like trying to understand serial killers was like a perverse thing because they're just perverse
Seriously?
people. Yeah. And so they had to fight like pretty hard in the 70s to like even interview serial killers and like try to understand them better and like do kind of prevention and like helps them catch future serial killers and like the whole psychoanalyzing and all of that. So I think understanding even like really wrong views is also really important. Even
No,
though
and I 100% agree.
Okay. Cool.
It's just like when it comes to like kids, I don't know if it's like the mom hormones, but like I just have this overprotective like.
yeah, you just don't want to think about it.
No, I really don't.
Yeah, for sure.
And like being like put in that, trying to relate to that and like putting myself like, oh, what if like my daughter was like in this situation? Like just makes me so irrationally angry.
Yeah, as it should.
She's
Wow.
about to blow up Lincoln. Leonard, watch out.
Yeah.
So Cyan's view of the world shifts pretty drastically in this chapter. Has your view changed much, Rick, of this world?
They're a lot better put together than I kind of expected. I mean, and not in the sense like they're all scattered all over the place, not knowing what's going on, but the fact that they are utilizing these otherwise, sorry, I know they're kids and they're getting lobotomized, but otherwise these thrown away like scraps of resources of things, or they're using them. They're not just killing them, but they're creating these functions around the world to try to make it as normal as possible. Whether it's good or not, that's a different, it's awful. But it's cool trying to like seeing structure government because up until now we mostly saw so we saw Guardian, we know these orders are out there, we heard the stories, and then we saw a town, or we saw a town that got blown up and had their water ripped away. But it's kind of cool seeing like a bigger governmental section. I like the idea of the fulcrum. I mean, I don't, that's awful, but like it's
Interesting having
yeah.
look into like not just small towns, but like an actual government. Because like in the prologue, we see there's like a king and in his tower, and there's like a whole bunch of government people, and then it's just like, oh, here's Rask in this tiny town.
Or organized response versus like reactional response, like it's kind of what is interesting.
And it's stuff like that too that also breaks this barrier between high fantasy like versus post-apocalyptic. Like definitely get a post-apocalyptic vibe from this chapter also.
Which part specifically broke that?
Talking about the societal government basically.
Okay.
Like having this these node stations everywhere.
And like more obelisk talk.
They're irrelevant. They just float in the sky randomly.
I don't think it's so much post-apocalyptic. It feels like it's just constantly apocalyptic. That's
So
what
it
the world
says.
feels
So it
like.
is post-apocalyptic and apocalyptic and
And,
pre-apocalyptic.
yep. Technically.
But really, what is apocalyptic? If not the friends you made along the way.
You lost along the way, I think. Yes.
Oh yeah, that
We-
one's sorry, way off.
We didn't read the interlude, right? Because I didn't.
No.
Okay.
No. We are done. This chapter, like, there's a lot in it, but there's not really that much to talk about. Like, it's terrible. And
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't surprising at all. It's just that there's so much build up about this whole Fulcrum and the Guardians and the way they do things. So I don't think it really caught me by surprise, but it's just more the author is just slowly revealing all the dark deeds this society is doing, you know?
Yeah.
Very dark.
So, what do you think's going to happen with like? How do you think the utilization of this power is going to impact him breaking the world? Because I mean, that's clearly where it's kind of pointing at, and it's going to somehow fix the world. But
Yeah,
there-
I have no idea where this book is going. I just think that our 3 female characters are the same.
I think you are. I think that's an awesome idea. I hope that's true.
Yeah.
I think the obelisks are going to be focal points for people to push their power into, and somebody's going to be able to do some like massive, like they're going to grab it, like it's going to be the chain. It's going to be their satellite connection of all the people's powers to counter whatever giant earthquake that's about to end the world, or something dumb, or some.
Or like they're like holding the world together from
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Like
I have
that's
another
Ooh.
crazy protection after your obelisks.
that's it. Go for it. The obelisks are just going to be the focal point, like the
Yeah.
facilitating features is all.
I think Alabaster is going to become the king. And he's
I-
going to be the one to destroy.
I think he's going to die.
I think he'll die too.
He's not immortal. Bold predictions we have here. Got it.
Yes. I was going to say, especially if your 3 lives thing is true. I think he's going to die way early.
I think the other
I think it's
thing
gonna
that
skip.
support Lexi's theory is that, have you noticed that Esun's chapter is every other chapter?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All odd number chapters are hers.
Oh, I
So-
wonder if there's some significance to that.
Does that support her theory?
Because she gets a lot more coverage than the other characters. The other characters could skip a chapter or 2, but Esun's pretty consistent at coming back. It's as if the author wants to remind you that this is Esun's story. That's why her chapters she uses the word you rather than a third person view,
Mhm.
and
there's-
that she's covered so frequently because I think she's trying to do like this is her story, and the other parts are maybe flashbacks or some snippets of context that she wants to add in.
I think that does cement it, because the you is present tense, everything else is past tense. The you is describing what's going on now, and she's in these super short chapters every other chapter. Like her other chapters are like since the blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Her chapters are very uneventful.
I don't know if I'd say it cements it, but definitely
Well-
more evidence.
Supports it. Yeah.
I think the tense supports it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I you know what? I stand here. It cements it, Daniel.
Boom.
I dropped these.
I also think Guardians can read minds.
Okay.
I think Lexi's wrong.
I think it's very possible, but I don't want to confirm that one.
I think that guy was manipulative as fuck.
Yeah. He manipulated me. I thought
I
he was a
don't-
He
good
was an
guy.
expert.
I don't think he's read minds. I think he's putting the ideas in her head, which is why it seems like read minds.
Ooh, that's even more sinister.
He seems like a fine
Yeah.
guy. He's trying to get her to not blow up by putting a dagger in her. It's fine.
Yeah.
Pressure.
Shafa. I was
Right,
thinking just the name Shafa might be a play on the word shepherd. Yeah.
Oh.
Shepherd's got to
Shepherds
call
all
their
these
flock
kids.
sometime.
Yeah, I guess. That's a take. All right. Let's do some final thoughts. Leonard, what did you think about this first 8 chapters? Are you enjoying the book, hating it, somewhere in between?
Somewhere in between. I was a little surprised when the world has like so much supernatural things like superpowers. I'm not a really big fan of the idea of supernatural powers because it gives the author too much room to like, oh, this person now is much stronger than everyone else and he becomes the big villain. It just gives the author too much leeway to do lazy writing, and I'm not a big fan of superpowers in stories usually. I really thought this was just going to be a truly like post-apocalyptic,
Grounded.
sciencey, yeah, kind of not that wild of a world.
Lexi, how about you?
I can tell you that I am more excited for this book now after talking with you guys.
Same.
Okay. Anything specific that made you feel that way?
She wants to be right.
Just like the fact that we all read the same book, the first 8 chapters of this book, and we're all on sort of different, I don't want to say sides, but different theories on different perspectives on all these different things. It makes it very entertaining, and I'm more invested in it now, right? So I want to see where we all end up.
Rick?
Well, I'm gonna echo the whole like this is gonna be a lot more interesting after our conversation now, and it makes me wish we would have just started with the first 3 chapters, talked about it, and then maybe start doing bigger chunks of it, so we can get like, because usually by the first 3 to 5 chapters you've met your main casts for the most part. You might get interest later, and then we kind of discuss where we think it's going from there, and then do bigger chunks like that. Only because I had a rough time getting into the beginning of this book. It could have been because of the way I'm listening to it. It could be because of just how fanciful and learning new terminology straight off the bat. And I have this problem with every fantasy book, unless it's another part of the series, like the first book in every it's probably why I can't get into Malazan yet, and why I've had issues getting other ones is because I kind of need to go through it a couple of times before I start really internalizing what's going on, while I'm trying to also learn everything about this world in short order, especially when they do such a poor job at explaining what things actually are, like Leonard said earlier. And so it made it really rough in the beginning. I feel like us dissecting this has made it way more interesting, and now it's given, I think, all of us things to look out for, being like, oh yeah, that's exactly how we thought it was going to go, or no, fuck, we were way the fuck off.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh man, I didn't realize this was going to be like a Green Lantern novel, what the fuck. It's going to be fun. I think this is a neat thing, and I think this is probably why people do book clubs, because otherwise people would probably just like pick up the first 3 chapters and never look at it again if they just didn't get sold on the main characters.
Yeah.
Sure.
Daniel, what did you think about it?
I liked it a lot. I'm pretty invested in the world. I like the 3 different storylines, even though they are probably just one storyline. Yeah, I like the characters. I think Asun's an idiot, but and a terrible person. But I hope she finds her daughter, and her daughter is safe. Although I'm pretty sure his daughter's already safe with her father. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
I do like that though. I going back to that concept of that being the same person, super fun, because like normally these books you've got like 3 different parties, you're seeing these 3 different perspectives, and them all to turn out to be the same perspective. This is how we're gonna find out as soon as the fucking serial killer and the villain of the story, and this is how you justify, because now you know, Lexi. This is what you were just giving me crap about. This is how you figure it out. You get in the mind of the killer, so now we relate to the growing up point, and now we know what to look out for, and this is why they're all condemned, because of Esun.
Wow. I don't think she's going to become a villain at all. I think she's going to save, like, everyone. I think Alabaster the King is destroying the world, and she is going to save as many people as she can.
Okay. Why do you think Alabaster is going to be killing everyone?
Because he's the king.
He's so angry?
No, because I think he's angry, and I think he's pissed at, like, everything that's been done to him and his slave caste.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's going to become the king, but that is part of my crazy prediction.
Yeah, I could see him like. It seems very in character for him to kill a bunch of people, but they would be like government people and guardians rather than everyone.
Well, because even in the prologue, like he laments like all the extra collateral damage, but this is the only way that we'll be able to
Well, we don't
rebuild
know that's
society.
him.
That I'm saying that's him.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's why I think Alabaster is that person.
Okay. Nice. Anyone else have hot takes, predictions before we wrap this up?
Honestly, it feels really hard to predict. I'm more curious than wanting to predict now. Like, I'm so curious about what the stone tablets that have been scraped off were saying in the past. You know, somebody's trying to hide the past. Is it for a good reason? Is it for a bad reason? We all automatically assume it's for a bad reason, right? But what's on it, right? And we won't know until we see that. Why the Guardians are so powerful, because nothing has been described in such a way that they are like almighty, but somehow the Origines really, fear them. I don't know. There's just so much mystery, and it's so hard to predict. And like Lexi's theory kind of changed, like, oh shit, now predictions are different. You're not predicting 3 different characters' future now. You're predicting one. So I don't have a good theory.
Yeah. Sure. Anything from you, Rick?
Curious about what the Stone Eaters are doing. I'm curious about our little kid friend. I wonder if
Really?
this also has to do with all these obelisks sucking up the powers and they're coming
I
down.
knew you
like,
were going to
take
talk about
power.
the obelisk.
Oh, look at they're clearly the main character.
They're the real heroes of the story.
No, but why? But seriously, like we know nothing. Like the Stone Eater is going to be either a harbinger of death or the savior. Like there's no like middleman about what that kid's about to do, or
Yeah.
what his appearance means. And I do think that if we're going to use I don't want to use that reference. So I do think that maybe this whole thing might come down to defending against his race of the Stone Eaters or something along those lines. Like they're going to be either the major villain or they're going to be something to be bringing, like, even if they're not like actively evil. Like I think Alabaster's cool. He's a nice dude. He's fine. But I don't think he survives. I don't think I think he's way dead already though.
I got a wild ass theory about the obelisk. Like,
Do you?
super
Let's hear
wild.
it. Let's hear it.
I think they are probably terraforming machines.
Yeah, dude.
They're probably
They're aliens.
they maybe they got shut down in the middle of actually fixing Earth, and they were a technology that was meant to fix Earth's current condition, but some side effect happened, and maybe that's why people with superpowers came about. My theory is that they're terraforming devices. That's it.
That's
I like
It's
that a lot.
super out there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
super out
that
there.
is not out there. That's totally that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like, how do we convert this? Either fix the what if it doesn't like either way you put it. If it's for the good, bring Earth back to normal, or if it's aliens or some other nefarious demon being or whatever is there to convert it to their requirements.
Yeah.
Like that's a great idea too, especially with how these powers are all kind of working, where they break the planet, like, or they're utilizing the elements. I like it, Leonard.
Yeah, actually do too.
I do
They
too.
were terraforming and they fucked it up and fucked up the planet, and then they're gonna figure out how to fix it. And
Third
save the
idea?
world.
Right, because I would go for it.
Assumes an obelisk. That's the fourth perspective.
Assoon is all the obelisks or just
the
No,
fifth
one?
element.
Just one.
Okay.
It's the fifth element.
Yeah.
One day Hoa will say you're ready, and then all the obelisks will turn on at Esun's command.
By the way, Lexi, I like how your eyes lit up really big, like, oh, there's another theory, and then I said that, and just a comment washed across your face.
This is the bad thing about doing this with cameras is that you guys can see my facial expression.
That was a Rick
Yeah.
fact for future reference.
Thank you. Can you just like anytime you're about to say a Rick fact, can you just like say
wink.
that you're gonna you'll wink.
If you're listening to this podcast, it's probably on YouTube also. You can watch us make stupid faces at each other.
Oh, true.
All right. Lexi, you want to do an outro?
I was-
Yeah. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, and thanks for all of the milk. This has been Discounted. See you next time.
Get any milk.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi.
We open the book with a woman. Oh, go ahead. We open the book with a woman.
Start over. Start over. So we can cut this out.
We open the
All
book with a woman.
Do you want to read them? That was a good voice.
No.
What was
But
it?
it reminds me of Stormlight because only women read.
It didn't.
True.
The book didn't open with a woman though. It opened with some guy who's supposed to be important.
Trust me. It opened with a woman.
It opened with a woman. Lexi?
Sorry, that was me pretending to be the woman.
What?
Oh, is
Oh,
that
this
is
is
that
me
what
pretending
pretending to be a woman
too.
looks like? You don't have to pretend, Lexi. All right. Chapter 2. Damaya is a young Arajani girl who's been locked in her family's barn for several days in a calm called Palela. Damaya?
No, I fucking hate erogyny. Like I'm thinking erogyny's I just don't like the word.
Oh yeah.
It's like moist. Like I mean I don't mind the word moist, but that's the framing. So every time you're like that's a really erogyny girl, I don't like it. Just it's a little uncomfortable. It's like I don't know.
Oh.
It's just weird.
I think it's a great word. I don't know.
Really, you have a huge.
Would it be better if I pronounce it like origin?
You
No.
should say Raga.
Raga? Just go full derogative. I did that in the first chapter because that was the only word we knew in the first
Full
chapter.
alabaster.
I like how you're doing spoilers for 5 minutes later, but continue. Or not spoiler protections for 5 minutes later. Anyway.
Oh,
Go.
In your
I
summary.
thought it was
Ero-
more fitting. It wasn't
Erogenous.
spoilers.
Let's tell me all about your erogyny zones.
Damn.
Oh, that's why, because erogenous.
Yeah.
That's why erogyny sounds weird.
Sure does.
It's the word. Get over it. Just kidding.
Okay, over it.
All right. Chapter 2. Damaya is a young Arajani girl who's been locked in her family's barn.
Yeah, you can't not hear it.
No, I don't hear it. I've been reading Arajani for a week now, so.
Been doing way longer than that, buddy.
All right. Chapter 2. Damaya is a young Arajani girl who's been locked. All right. You might have to mute. Yeah, okay.
Let's start from the second sentence.
No.
We need the first one.
Get through. It's important. Her being locked in a barn. All right. What?
See, right now, she would be making
This
things
is-
like Tremor.
This is the worst timing. Like, this is the time when we would want Lexi's opinion on these female things. No, don't worry about it, Lexi. We'll come back to this.
How do you spell
Aw.
cyanide?
It's
SYENITE.
yeah, SYENITE with a T.
Yeah, because she literally says like in the book that she doesn't. Sorry, 1 second.
She doesn't really want babies. I just remember that comment, and I don't remember why that comment stuck out. Maybe she's being sarcastic when I heard it.
Sorry. She bumped her knee today, and she's been limping, and like it's starting to bruise, and she's just a very happy baby.
Oh no.